Hey there, vinyl community. So my name is Austin, and this is my, intro video, kind of explaining how I got into vinyl and introducing myself to the community. So I guess I got into vinyl just because I've always been a collector of things. You know, when I was a kid it was rocks, and then Hot Wheels, and then I still collect and play Magic the Gathering. But then once I moved up for school, I lost the community I had for Magic down here, and I didn't really have anything to do, so I figured since I like music a lot, I'll take up collecting records. That seems fun. And I don't know, music's always been a big part of my life. That's why I've decided to collect records. I mean, I'm going to school majoring in audio production specifically to try and become a producer for music, so I just figured it would be kind of a natural thing to do, and I've had a lot of fun with it. So I guess what I've done here is I've pulled out a selection of 10 records, not exactly like all-time favorites or a top 10 or anything, just 10 records that I really enjoy, just to try and give you guys an idea of my taste and what I collect. So I'll just get started into those. First one I've got here is by Alcest. It's called Souvenirs d'un Autre Monde. And if you don't know Alcest, they're part of this French black metal scene. Guy called Neige runs it. He also does the black metal band Peste Noire, which is different. All his projects are different. I think he does Les Discrets and Amazures, or at least they're related in some way. But Alcest is kind of like, you've got the harsh vocals from black metal, but then you've got this really nice production, this whole summery feel to it, like shoegaze elements. And it's really nice, and this record is really cool. It's one of my favorite colors. It's on this like amber with black swirls into it. It's, out of all my colored records, it's probably one of my favorites. So, if you're into any kind of black metal or shoegaze, either of the two genres, I'd really recommend checking out this album. It's probably the best Alcest album. Next one, this is Sea Change by Beck, and I don't know, before like last year, the only Beck I had heard was Odelay, and I enjoyed it, but then once I started to really get into Beck, I found out that I liked more of his mellow, toned down stuff, and the albums I probably enjoy the most are Sea Change and Mutations. And I came across this at a local store the other day. I actually only got this like a week ago, and the store, it's this guy selling off his old collection, and they give pretty good discounts, so I picked this up for relatively cheap, considering what they go for generally. Next up is a Captain Beefheart record. Out of all of it, I've only heard like 5 of his albums, but the way I listen to him is I just buy a record and then listen to it. And I'm going chronologically with Beefheart. This is the latest one I have, and out of all I've heard, it's probably my favorite. It's only 4 tracks. They're all pretty long. Clear vinyl, by the way. And they're just really, he's a strange man, and he's definitely he was a big influence on one of my favorite artists, Tom Waits. And I love Tom Waits, and I could tell from hearing Safe as Milk that he was definitely influenced by Beefheart, so I've been trying to listen more and more to Beefheart stuff. Favorite track on this one's probably Terraplane. It's the first track, 19-minute jam. I don't know how to describe Beefheart, but chances are you guys have probably already heard plenty of his stuff. This next one I've got was released last Black Friday as part of the like Black Friday record store day type of thing. It was when I was really starting to get into it. And it's this Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory by Dream Theater. This is probably the last Dream Theater album I enjoyed. I got really into Dream Theater when I started checking them out. I heard Images and Words, and Awake, and I really enjoyed them. The more I started listening, the worse they got. And Metropolis was refreshing because after two pretty bad albums after Awake, this one was really, really good. And then after that, I can't listen to anything they've done. It's all just too over the top for me to handle. It's almost like power metal. It's just ridiculous. But Scenes from Memory is this concept album. I don't know the story too well, but it's something about this guy who discovered his past life as some woman that was murdered. But either way, this is a really well put together album. Probably one of the best concept albums that I've ever heard. And this next album is two albums, and I'm doing them together because they're companion albums. They go together. They're meant to be played one after the other. That's Leaving Your Body Map and Bath by Maudlin of the Well. And these albums, Maudlin of the Well is probably the hardest band I listen to that I could describe. Bath opens up with this quiet, like, guitar little ballad thing that lasts 7 minutes, and then goes into this heavy metal song. And then later there's The Ferryman, which is a bunch of organ drones, and then there's Girl with a Watering Can. It opens with a clarinet solo, and really nice. I don't know, they have a lot of influences. Metal is the main obvious one, but then jazz and folk and classical, and so much that goes into them that they're really difficult to describe. You kind of just have to hear them. And if you've never heard of Maudlin of the Well, the other bands, they broke up after releasing this album and then formed another band called K.O. Dot. They're a little more popular. And then they reformed in 2009 for another album, which wasn't as good as these, but it's still a pretty good album. And actually that one, if you haven't heard Maudlin of the Well, go onto their website. Just do a Google search and their website will come up. And their last album, Part the Second, is a free download. You can just listen to that, and you'll get an idea what they're like. This next one is probably the best album to come out of the New York City jazz scene, the recent stuff, and that's the self-titled album by Naked City. And it's just this crazy avant-garde jazz stuff. You know, there's nice little jazz tracks and then crazy squealing saxophone that you'd expect in free jazz albums, and then you get little spy-themed songs, you get country influence, you get all kinds of crazy stuff with this album. Overall, it does have a spy theme to it. It even has a cover of the James Bond theme, and I don't even know. All John Zorn stuff is kind of challenging to listen to, challenging to get into, but Naked City's self-titled would definitely be a good start. This album I actually picked up yesterday, but it's one of my favorite albums by him. Him being Tom Waits, and this is The Heart of Saturday Night. The cover is a take on Frank Sinatra's album In the Wee Small Hours, and this is Tom Waits' second album when he was still doing piano ballads and country and folk influence stuff, and you can definitely hear the Sinatra influence on this album. I don't know, I'm more of a fan of Waits' earlier stuff rather than his newer stuff. It's all good, but I like everything from Closing Time to The Heart Attack and Vine a lot more than his other stuff. Next up I have, it's hard to see because it's a dark cover, but this is Spirit They're Gone, Spirit They've Vanished by Animal Collective. And how do I even describe this? It's really noisy, psychedelic folk, I guess. Either way, it opens with this squealing, high-pitched frequency that just hurts your ears, and then it just gets into this babbling, almost incoherent vocals. If you don't pay attention, it just sounds like nonsense. but it's just really psychedelic. It's two guys in a forest making some psychedelic folk, and it's kind of cool. Not my favorite Animal Collective record, but definitely a good one.